The UK government does not want you guys to see this video.
If you haven't been following the situation, it's not by accident. It's very clearly not getting the attention it should be, with some even claiming that it's worse than the Epstein case.
And this all started with Rupert Lowe, a member of parliament who's partnering with survivors to put together this report. And with over 20,000 concerned citizens who've raised $500,000 to make this happen, this was released after 2 full weeks of hearings, and it's completely shaken the public perception of the UK government and has actually exposed one of the largest human trafficking scandals of all time. And on top of that, has even led to the recent stepping down of the Prime Minister, but we're going to get into that later.
Minimally 250,000 girls in the UK have been raped across 149 districts, with estimates that up to 87% of the perpetrators are Pakistani Muslims, which has been highly controversial due to the public debate around open borders and race tensions in the UK. But this isn't just a race and border crisis. The real fallout happens when you discover who covered it all up.
And so before we get into that, let's hear directly from a survivor and talk about the most shocking part of her story. Sammy Woodhouse is the courageous survivor who's been advocating for blowing the whistle on these rape gangs, and she's partnered with Rupert Lowe in the UK's parliament to create the Rape Gang Inquiry.
I had lots of friends. I always say there was nothing vulnerable about me, apart from the obvious. I was just a child, but I had a great future ahead of me. I met Arshad Hussain just after my 14th birthday, and the grooming process started instantly. And I always say that the grooming process is the most dangerous of crimes. He first of all came into my world. He found out everything there was to know about me, who my friends, family were, what I enjoyed with music, movies, what school I went to. And then, he paid me compliments. He told me I was funny, I was beautiful. He bought me gifts. And then when he got all of that information, he then took me into his world, which is...
And that's really key. Like, this is classic grooming. And my perception of all of this to begin with, when I first heard about the gang inquiry, I thought girls were being not necessarily kidnapped, but snatched and assaulted just straight from the streets, especially when you hear that 250,000 of them. You think that that's what's happening. You're not necessarily imagining this grooming dynamic happening.
Of course, was very different from mine. It was very dark, it was very violent. Once you was inside of it, it was very difficult to get out. Now, instantly I started going missing for days, weeks, months at a time. I was raped, beaten, abducted. I was made pregnant twice. First when I was 14, I was forced to have an abortion, and then again at 15. My son is now 24 years old. But I was also criminally exploited, so I was forced to commit crimes, and I've received a criminal record because of that, just like many, many children across the UK have. But unfortunately, the professionals that were paid, to protect me and other children didn't.
So there's a lot there, especially at the end, which we're going to get to in just a moment. But Sammy's story is so horrific, especially when she lists it out like that. But unfortunately, this is not unique. There's 250,000 girls that in the UK alone that can relate to this, that were systematically targeted in this way, just like Sammy was.
And this is exactly why we created our Red Flags program, so that we can educate families and young people about these dangers of grooming. Because like Brianna said, 250,000 is that's incomprehensible. But if there's something that we've learned over and over again throughout the years, is that it all starts with the same thing. It all starts with grooming.
And so at 16 years old, Sammy actually went to the police with her story and for help, and they did nothing. But that's not the worst of it. She actually talks about getting kidnapped by her abuser and how the police made a deal with him to help him get off.
So they made a deal with him when I was abducted, and they said if you drop off at a petrol station, then then you wouldn't be prosecuted and go to prison. He's now been sentenced to 35 years, but I witnessed police officers buying drugs off him, giving information. What we now know from our report is that police officers were directly involved in raping children. They called them cop nights. Children was raped by dogs. They was locked in cages. We are talking about the most horrific of torture that you can ever imagine to children. They took bets on how to murder children. And this went right to the very top. We're talking about every service involved: police, social care, excuse me, education, the Home Office. Now, my own files show that in 1999, our government knew their entire operation, who these rapists were, who the victims were, where they was collecting them, car registration plates. They knew absolutely everything. Now,
that is so disturbing. She went to the police as a 16-year-old, which is so hard. We do not oftentimes see victims of crimes like this actually self-report and identify themselves as a victim. And she went at 16 years old and they did absolutely nothing. Partly because her main abuser was related to a UK politician and police officer.
Gosh, guys, we thought that Epstein was bad. This is 250,000 girls systematically raped, and the most powerful people in the UK knew and did nothing. Now, streamer Asmongold did a 7-hour stream reading all 219 of these pages of this report. So let's take a look at the report itself, because when you see how widespread this cover-up went and how deep the corruption is, it should make you question everything.
However, every one of our institutions failed them catastrophically. Police forces ignored repeated reports, criminalized victims instead of perpetrators, destroyed evidence, and that's the reason why they say all the time, oh, well, let's look at the evidence, because they know there isn't any because it was destroyed. That's exactly it. And allowed known rapists to walk free on bail. Social care services undermined protective parents, placed children in trafficking hubs inside children's homes, closed cases despite clear indicators of exploitation, and retaliated against whistleblowers. The NHS recorded genital injuries, multiple sexually transmitted infections, and children as young as 13. Pregnancies caused by rape, suicide attempts, yet discharge victims back to their abusers. Again, they identified rape, suicide attempts, and forced pregnancies, and then after that, they discharged the victims back to their abusers without safeguarding referrals or trauma care. This is an institutional evil. This is not something that happened because 5 assholes from Pakistan did something wrong. The people that are in Britain that run the government are the true evil. They are the ones, and it's the same probably in the other countries as well. Britain is just the example being used today. And if you think this isn't happening in America, you're a fucking idiot. This is happening here too. It's just a little bit different. Schools observed older men, this is it, schools observed older men collecting girls at the gate, heard disclosures of rape on school premises, and responded by excluding victims rather than protecting them. The schools heard these girls were getting raped, and they said, well, we can't have that around here. That's inconvenient. Let's go ahead and get rid of these people. Look at that. And then this is the rape culture. We all, you remember that? It's rape culture? Well, here it is. Taxi licensing authorities renewed permits for drivers who formed the logistical background of the networks that collapsed in the face of organized protests when basic safety measures were proposed. The authorities at every level, including the police, social services, health services, schools, licensing bodies, and politicians, knew the patterns, possessed the intelligence, and still failed to protect the country's children. They intentionally didn't do it. They didn't fail to do it. They didn't do it on purpose. The evidence establishes that a national scandal of repeated rape, trafficking, torture, and pregnancy, forced Islamic conversion, and lifelong trauma enabled by institutional denial, political calculation, and the fear of the accusation of racism took place over decades.
And this is all because they didn't want to be called racist. They were scared literally of being called names, and therefore they allowed 250,000 girls to be systematically raped. And now the Prime Minister of the UK is stepping down.
But I know the question being asked now is not who was best placed to change the Labour Party, to take us into power, and to begin the vital work of improving lives for millions of people. Those questions have been answered. The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election.
Well, when you allow this to happen.
I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that
They said
question.
nope.
Yeah.
And I accept that answer with good grace.
Oof.
Gosh, guys, like I know every good CEO, business leader, person takes ownership over the mistakes that even people on the front lines make within their businesses. And gosh, as a leader of a nation like this, man, this was on his watch.
Well, and so much of it was covered up, and he pushed a lot of policies and different narratives that were super harmful. Like he helped block, like they were trying to get this inquiry a long time ago, and things were being blocked, I think, by the Labor Party. Fact check me on that. But like, and so that's why they had to get 20,000 concerned citizens to donate $500,000 to make this happen. And so people are literally so fed up that good riddance has now been trending on X to say goodbye to this guy. And honestly, guys, here's the reality. Every race, nationality, every country has people part of it that will traffic others, that will abuse and torture kids. And we've been doing this for too long to think otherwise. But to literally come face to face with the victims and do nothing about it because we're scared of people calling us names, that is wild.
Yeah, because here's the deal, guys. Life is messy, and we're all going to face situations where there is a clear right and wrong, and someone needs to speak up about it. And that can be something like calling out a friend for leaking nudes, or getting parents involved when finding out a friend is thinking about self-deletion. We've both been in those situations before, and it's scary to speak up, and someone might even call you names or bully you, or you might even lose friends. But it all comes down to this. What kind of person do you want to be? The kind of person who stands up for what's right, or only cares about yourself? Because doing the right thing usually means that we're sacrificing something.
But how many of these normal, everyday people who covered this up could be our neighbors? Those were teachers, police officers, social workers, nurses, and doctors. Does that eat them up inside? Was their comfort actually worth it?
Yeah, let us know in the comments below what kind of person you want to be and what you think of this whole situation.